بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So we went through, did we finish Maghrib? We went through the stages of Maghrib? I don't think so. I think we went through the stages of Asr, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to go through. So we spoke what was the big message about Maghrib though? Right, we're going to go through the actual details right now. But what was the big message? What was this meta concept, the huge concept that we learned when we were talking about Maghrib?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaykum salam wa
S-
salam.
So the main thing was that Imam Shafi had a different opinion than the legal school of thought during his last days.
Okay, so what's the big message then?
Um, that the schools of thought can differ from the
Mm-hmm.
originator of the school.
Good. So they can differ. So it is a madhab a recording of the fatwa of an individual?
No.
No, right? And the school is a product of how many people?
Many thousands.
Many thousands, right? And so that cumulative work, or the combined efforts of those individuals is greater than the individual. So we're talking about madhab, we're talking about the the what's it called? The product of a civilization, right? The product of a civilization, not the product of an individual, right? That's the key concept. So, right. So then it's a no-brainer why you would follow a madhab over something else. Okay. So now let's break down Maghrib into different stages. So we have optimal time. When is the best time to pray Maghrib?
As soon as it comes in.
Good. So
Yeah, isn't that also the thinking also by breaking the fast, at least for Sunnis, is as soon as after the sunset comes in?
it's not quite the same, Sham. Not quite the same. So praying at the beginning of the time um, is about love and about dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about trying to fulfill Allah's command as soon as possible. Right? That's one thing. The other thing is about not outdoing a difficulty that Allah has imposed upon us. Right? So if we get a reward for fasting because it is difficult, do we get more reward if we make it harder? Does that make sense? So the answer would be like, yeah. So keep fasting, right? Don't have suhoor. Make it even harder for yourself. Break your fast as late as possible. Make it harder for yourself because you're going to get more reward. The answer is no, don't do that. Right? So if there is an accidental difficulty, meaning Allah is asking you to fast, He's not asking you to suffer, but then as an accident of fasting you suffer, then you get a reward for that. But you don't cause harm to yourself. So again, with the Shia notice, self-flagellation, right? That's a thing. Christianity, same thing, right? That was a major thing in medieval Christianity, right? Harming yourself, making yourself suffer, crawling to the Vatican, etc. Those kind of things, right? Causing yourself pain, right? Jesus suffered, so cause yourself pain. So it's different, slightly different concept. Okay. It's different from not taking dispensations, totally different thing. That's called wara. That's called scrupulous. You're not trying to make life hard. You are trying to avoid difference of agreement. Like, I don't know, will Allah accept this or not? I'm not sure if actually Allah has allowed this or not, so I'm being careful. Does that make sense? Okay. So optimal time, offensive time. So given the debate between Imam Shafi and himself, and in fact, given the debate between the Shafi school and the Maliki school, when do you think the offensive time ends?
When the offensive time ends?
When the offensive time begins, sorry.
Maybe when you start seeing the stars in the sky.
Before that. So according to Imam Shafi's position that he died on, when does Maghrib end?
At Isha, right?
That's his original opinion. That is so his original opinion, which he rejected, is the position of the school.
So
Is
the
it one
Jadid
third?
opinion,
So the Jadid is what?
that it ends like about is it 1/3?
No, it's less than that. So the Jadid and the Maliki school is Maghrib comes in, you don't have a window of time, you just have to pray it. You just have to pray it. So you have time to put your clothes on, make wudu, pray 3 rakats Maghrib, pray 2 rakats Sunnah, that's it, done. So 10, 15 minutes, right? That's how much time you have, right? So delaying Maghrib is not a good thing to do, right? It's offensive. It's not as bad as delaying Asr, but it is, right? So according to Malikis, you're sinful now, right? The prayer is still ada, it's still on time, you're sinful, right? And so I don't understand quite how Malikis apply this because it seems quite difficult. But that's the Jalid. It's basically, and so what happened to Sayyidina Jibreel and Hadith in Abu Dawood, he led the Prophet ﷺ in prayer at the beginning of Dhuhr time and the end of Dhuhr time. And the beginning of Asr time, and he did not pray Asr just before Maghrib. He didn't do that. Right? He prayed it before Isfirar or at Isfirar, at that last third of the Maghrib Asr time. Maghrib, he prayed on the 2 days, he prayed at the same time. So that gives a sense that there's no window, it's just sunsets, Maghrib, that's it. Pray of sunset. It is now sunset, now you pray.
Ustad, sorry, you said it's not as bad as delaying Asr.
Yeah, it's not as bad. So, because delaying Asr, at least until the late time, is something that is sinful according to many scholars.
Okay.
Yeah. So, majority of scholars, yeah. So, I mean, you can look at it in different ways, right? In reality, the most important thing in the scholars' eyes is it valid or not? Like, on Judgment Day, you stand before Allah. Have you prayed Asr or not? Right? That is the most important thing, right? For which reason you could say, well, why do you pray twice? Asr, because I pray it once because I don't want to be sinful for delaying, and I pray a second time because at least I know guarantee that all ulama say that it's valid. Right? So validity is one of the biggest issues. Like, have you prayed or not? I'm confident that I prayed, like alhamdulillah, right? That's kind of the biggest issue. Falling into sin or not falling into sin is a second issue. It's obviously important, but not as important, right? Let's say, for example, witr, right? Like, will Allah ask me about witr or not? That's a big issue. Like, I don't know if Allah will ask me about witr or not, so I better do it. Um, so it's difficult to say. I'm kind of to say in an objective say it's which is worse, delaying Maghrib or delaying Asr. But as far as I see it, it's delaying Asr. Allahu A'lam. So any offensive time, but Maghrib shouldn't be delayed. If you look in many masjids, they will have a fixed time for Dhuhr, Asr, right? But they don't have but Maghrib comes in and they just pray it when the sun sets, right? Okay, offensive time, permissible time. Well, this kind of understood. Sinful time. What is a sinful time?
For Maghrib, it would be just when you're way too close to Isha, like taking it up to the very minute.
Right. So let's say it's 3 rakahs. You can, if you timed yourself, you could pray 3 rakahs in 1 minute and 29 seconds. And now it's 1 minute and 28 seconds. And you've never managed to beat, like you've never, your absolute minimum is praying in that time. So sinful time, right? So that it is not enough time to pray the whole prayer on time. So notice here, whether the prayer is a makeup prayer or not is kind of something else, right? So we say the prayer is considered a makeup prayer if you didn't pray at least 1 rak'ah on time. But that's a description of what it is, not what you did, right? So one is something is your action. Was your action good or bad? The other one is what is the prayer, right? It's like you fell over. Okay, you fell over and damaged somebody's plant pot, right? So unless there's some kind of other circumstances, the default is you're liable for damages. So therefore, you have to pay for it. Now, is that action good or bad? It's not. It's neither nor because you fell over, right? It's not considered good or bad, right? So here we're talking about your human actions. We're not talking about whether the prayer is valid or invalid, or whether the prayer was considered on time or not on time. And then it's worth noting as well that the discussion of whether the prayer is on time or not on time isn't very relevant in the Shafi school at all. Like, it doesn't really have many repercussions. Whereas whether it's sinful or not is important. Because you woke up, you set an alarm clock to pray Fajr on time, you didn't wake up, and you woke up 1 minute before sunrise, and you managed to pray just the Fatiha on time. Okay, you're not sinful then, are you? So you're not sinful, but the prayer is qada. Prayer is considered a makeup. So what is the significance of it being a makeup? It's just a label, that's all. It's just a technical label. Like, it doesn't really mean that much. How you do a makeup prayer, how you don't make up, it's all the same. You don't have to intend that it's a makeup either. So, you know, like if you had a qada prayer to do, you missed dhuhr yesterday, and today you prayed dhuhr, and then you prayed dhuhr again, thinking you hadn't prayed dhuhr, then the qada prayer the prayer today counts as yesterday's prayer, so it's great. Like it's not a really a thing. It's just a label. Whether prayer is on time or not on time is a label. Whereas this is a description of your action. You knew that it was dhuhr time. You delayed it, knowing that there's not enough time to pray the whole of the prayer on time. So therefore, you chose not to obey Allah. So now you're sinful. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Sister Tigger's, I think, just joined. I'm not sure who else just joined. Muhammad Sabir came in and out, but I think Sister Tigger's talking about Maghrib. Okay. So best time is sunset. It's now offensive after you wait 10, 15 minutes for no reason. It's now offensive. You delayed it for offensive. So it's
Hey,
now.
can I ask one more question?
Go ahead, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. The question is that is the logic of also why it is offensive that we are delaying it because it is easier for us. So then it's not about Allah, it's about our own nafs.
That's about optimal, not optimal.
Okay.
Right, that's optimal, not optimal. Like so again, we mentioned this last week. Is that we don't compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ourselves, but like you and your wife, you both like the same coffee, okay? And you ordered a coffee and they messed up one, okay? So you chose the one that you like and you gave her the one that she doesn't particularly like. How does she feel towards you? You know, like, why did you choose yourself over me? You know, so it's not divorce, but it's like, why did you do that? You said, I'm so sorry. You're not really picky about your coffee. I am. I had to choose it. When you went to the bathroom, I chose this one. I started drinking this one. I'm sorry, but like I had to do that. She said, oh, whatever. But it's like, there's a little trace in it. There's a little line somewhere. It's like, at the end of the day, you chose yourself over me, right? Like you weren't altruistic. It's not very loving. It's not bad, but it's not optimal, is it? Like it's not the most loving thing to do. So optimal is a very profound and deep thing to say, like, what is the best thing I could ever do in this moment right now? Like, that's a huge question to ask, right? The optimal thing to do. What is the best thing to do? But it's not true to say that the opposite of it is offensive or haram. That's not true, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not the case, right? So it's not true to say that you didn't do the ultimate best thing in that moment, therefore you're doing something that Allah detests, but He hasn't threatened you with punishment for. That's not true. You know what I'm saying? So like you could have prayed, you prayed 3,000 rak'ahs, mashallah, after tahajjud, but you could have prayed 3,001. Is that makruh? It's not makruh. You know? It's just like why did you do that?
Can I ask one more quick question about Maghrib?
Just want to go ahead, yeah.
Okay, I've always wanted to ask you this is so sometimes I have the habit from when I first took Shahada, a teacher told me about doing 2 rakah when you enter the masjid for wudu and for entering the masjid. So my question is that many times I'll go to the masjid, they call the adhan. Is it more do I get more reward of just knocking out the 2 rakah after the call for the adhan? For the entering the masjid and wudu and then joining the jamaat, or should I join the jamaat right away? Because a lot of masajid, as
So
soon as the
I don't
adhan,
understand the question, please. The adhan is going while the prayer is happening?
no, it hasn't happened yet. They're calling the adhan. Okay, they call the adhan for Maghrib. They're assembling for the salah.
Okay, so
But
now
my
the
habit has been to pray the 2 rakah for wudu and entering the masjid. Anytime I go to the masjid for like years now, is it more, I guess, beneficial for me to just keep the tradition going of doing those 2 rakah, even though the jamaat has started, or it's more important to join the jamaat?
it's more important to join the Jama'at. So it's a makruh to do that. Just to start any prayer that you don't anticipate finishing before the iqama, right? So you say, oh, I'm going to finish it by the end of the iqama. No, you have to anticipate finishing that prayer before the iqama. So you look at the prayer times, oh, it's got 3 minutes till iqama, yeah, I can do it. 2 minutes till iqama, yeah, I can do it because they don't usually start on time. 1 minute until iqama, it's makruh to start the prayer now. Right? So
Thank
the
you.
Prophet said, well, either when the iqama goes, there's no prayer. Right? So after the iqama, or when you anticipate praying during the iqama, it's makruh to start a sunnah prayer at that time. Like Allah doesn't want you to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So here you're saying, what is the thing then? Is like Allah intentionally left the sunnah that you love for something you love more, which is right.
And I can always pray the sunnah after the Maghrib salah.
No, you can't. You can just pray sunnah if you want. You can let's say for example, you were lazy, right? You knew that you could left on time, but you didn't. So you were late. Now because you were lazy, like you made the wrong decision before, and now you pray Maghrib, like, and now you're like, no, I'm going to do it because I always do that. So now I'm just going to do a qada. It's not really a qada. You're just praying a sunnah, basically. But telling you enough, it's like, hey, you can't get around me, right? Now that's assuming there aren't something else better to do, right? So, that's something that like one of my teachers he emphasized with me is like make sure you always like if you miss the 2 or 4 rakahs before the dhuhr, make sure you always do them afterwards, right? And make sure you always do all of these things. But that's assuming certain things. Like my life, I mean, right now is kind of totally insane. Where we have a container coming to my house tomorrow morning, and went to sleep at like 1 last night, running the whole day trying to get everything done, and we haven't finished yet. So here's a scenario like today. Like, should I do that? Go to the masjid. Oh, I didn't pray my 2 rakahs before my of Tahiyyat masjid. Hey, nafs, don't do that. And then pray afterwards, after my other sunnahs. Or should I just get on with the really important thing of like, let's finish packing before 2 a.m. so that when that container comes tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, I'm actually ready and nothing goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? Now, there's that scenario. And then there's, hey, you're sitting at home. The kids have all grown up and flown the nest. There's nothing to do, right? Or yourself, Sham, for example, hey, you're in Buffalo right now. You finish work, you just got off the phone with your wife, and then it's like, hey, you didn't pray those 2 rakahs before, like pray them now, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with free time to see how we're going to do things. And Allah tests us in busy times to see how we're going to do things. And so each of those times has an adab, like what you should do. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
right? But as long as you're not making the decision for your nafs, and that's the problem, right? As long as you're not saying, well, I'm doing this, hey, I'm just missing this because of this reason, I'm missing because of this reason, right? You know, oh, I don't pray in the mosque anymore because I'm waiting for the Mahdi, and I need to be ready when he arrives. It's like, bro, you're just lying to yourself, So may Allah protect us. It is a sneaky thing, and the nafs by default is very sneaky, and the shaitan is very sneaky too. So we always have to be kind of like, But the right mentality is as long as there's nothing that's a priority and as long as there's no harm, is to always keep the same number of rak'ahs every single day. So the mentality is I used to do this, I will keep doing this because that day that you see yourself decline is a very dangerous day, right? So again, let's take the analogy of marriage. It's like, hey, can you remember when we used to go out for coffee on Tuesdays when it's like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Hey, remember you used to get me this? Yeah, we don't do that anymore. Hey, remember this picture? Hey, we used to go camping? Yeah, we don't go camping anymore. It's like, what happened to your marriage, bro? And it's like all these little things that used to happen, like nothing happens anymore. And it's like, yeah, we don't really talk it either. And this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen. And then things start to go. It's like, yeah. So just like we see in a relationship or in a business, right? You're in a business like, hey, I've noticed like we go to the office and the manager's in and out and it's pretty chill these days, not really that many orders. And then you realize, oh, 6 weeks later, there's now layoffs. Like, oh man, saw that coming, right? So there's certain things there's like in your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you say, oh yeah, remember you used to do this and now you don't do that, right? And so if you can't see that it's been replaced by something else, right? So yeah, but that was before the triplets. Oh yeah, that was before my mom got sick and I had to do this. That was before whatever. Okay. But for the average person, when you look at your life and say, you used to be like this, and now you're like this, and you see that it's less, that's a very dangerous situation to be in, right? Because it is now the descent into darkness, right? And we have to then catch ourselves and be very concerned. Inshallah. Does that make sense, Sham?
Yes, thank you for the detailed response.
Inshallah. Okay, so beginning time, we have sunset, optimal time, sunset itself. After you call the adhan, pray your two rakahs, etc. Offensive time to delay it past um, uh,
Sorry, Sheikh Farid. Is there even Tahiyyat al-Masjid for Maghrib Salah? Or
yeah, but you can do, for
oh,
example, you can do it. So you can do Tahiyyat al-Masjid. So you can do Tahiyyat al-Masjid and then pray two rakahs before Maghrib and then pray Maghrib. Yeah. Or you can do Tahiyyat al-Masjid as your two rakahs before Maghrib, right? Or you can do Tahiyyat al-Masjid as Maghrib, right? You come to the Masjid and they're already praying Maghrib, right? So you do Tahiyyat al-Masjid. So Tahiyyat al-Masjid is not really greeting the mosque. It is not disrespecting the mosque. That makes sense, right? Like you haven't seen your dad for like 2 days, and you walked into the room and walked out. It's like, subhanAllah, that's super rude. You didn't even say hello to him, right? So the issue with Tahiyyat al-Masjid is not sitting down. It is not that it's sunnah to pray. It is that you don't sit down. Right? The Prophet said, when one of you enters the masjid, let him not sit down until he prays two rak'ahs, i.e., at least two rak'ahs. So you're praying the fard, you're praying the sunnah, you're praying tahiyyat, just praying, right? Then you should do that, yeah. And
So
that
just
tahiyyat masjid could be after sunset or before sunset in the Shafi'i school, right?
oh,
So
okay. But
you
then
entered, so
during
it
that,
was 10 minutes before sunset and you came and did Tahiyyat al-Masjid, why not? Or the sun was just setting, you can do Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Yeah.
there's no like even the like a prohibited time for the sun on
Yeah,
the
so the
horizon, or
prohibited times do not apply to prayers that have a reason that comes before it or at the same time of it, such as two
oh,
rakats
okay.
before, after wudu, Salat al-Tawbah, Tahiyyat al-Masjid, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to something like the two rakats before entering ihram. You can't do that after Asr or after Fajr because the reason comes after it. You do the two rakats and then you do ihram. But here you enter the masjid and then you pray. So you can do it at those times in the Shafi school. Okay, so the end time disappearance of the red. Now we have excuse time. When's the last time you could pray Maghrib if you were excused because of travel or the like?
End of Isha.
End of Isha. End of Isha. Right,
Ustaz,
which is,
can I ask?
go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can I ask about the end time?
Mm-hmm.
So the end time in the Shafi school is not right before Isha.
It is. The end time of Maghrib is
Because disappearance of the red of the
the
time.
beginning of Isha.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
No, I
disappearance
mean,
of the red is, and so that's
mhm.
the hadith. That's the hadith that kind of that changed. You know that the hadith is, what is it? That Maghrib is until the until ما لم يغرب الشفق, until the shafaq this doesn't disappear. And so the shafaq, according to the Shafis, is the red of the sky.
And we probably can only see that at the horizon, right? We can't see that
Yeah, but
I
you can
mean,
look at the horizon for some time, you get an idea, and then when you're in a city, you can say it's a similar kind of thing. So it's not impossible. It's not like you don't know that. And here, I don't know. It's like in England, they don't do that. The Hanafis even follow this here in the Bay Area, where I am in California. So basically, all the mosques, local mosques, are following this time. They're following the disappearance of the red, not the disappearance of the white. So it is something that people use. In England, for example, the Hanafis, they will follow that in the summer because it makes it like maybe half an hour or an hour earlier. And it's very late. Instead of praying, for example, Maghrib, Isha at 11:30, you can pray like at 10:30 or 10 o'clock or something like that. Okay. And the duress time, meaning, so what does duress time mean? We discussed it in Asr, we discussed it in for Dhuhr. What does it mean when you say waqt darura?
Like in an overwhelming um uh in an overwhelming difficulty.
Not quite. That's excuse time.
is it I think you mentioned a few scenarios like for example, someone's period just ended.
So when it means, so this is a moral issue, meaning I am able to pray and it's difficult for me and Allah has allowed me the leeway to choose to pray at another time. So I'm excused. This is that you are ineligible to pray and you became eligible to pray. Okay, so that's why it's darura. It's like there's no ability, like you are not capable of doing it, right? So that's what we mean by daruri time is if you are incapable of praying it and then you became capable of praying it, would it be valid? That's what we're talking about. So the example of a woman on her period, a woman on her period cannot pray. So now, daruratan, now she is in Isha time. Is it valid for her to, not is she valid, is it valid? Because obviously, yeah, so that's something else. But is it still considered Maghrib time for her? The answer is yes. So she prays Maghrib on time in Isha time. If that makes sense, right? So the end of the Isha, right? So a woman finishing her period, a woman was finishing her Lokia, an insane person becoming sane, a young man who has not reached puberty, who reaches puberty, having had not prayed that prayer already, right? So he now became eligible to be obliged to pray, if that makes sense, right? He was eligible to pray before, but he wasn't eligible to be obliged to pray before. Does that make sense?
Yes, sister, but can I ask a question? But this applies to someone, I mean, all those scenarios. For example, someone's period ended, but ended on Isha time. They still have to do Maghrib, right?
Yeah, they have to. So, but
But
the
why
point
is that so?
is not considered qada, it's considered on time.
I see.
Mhm.
This is only for the Shafi. I mean,
This is for the Jumhur, this is for the Shafis,
oh,
Hanbalis, and Malikis. And in reality, if you read Al-Bayhaqi, it's one I like. Um, I'm gonna need counseling soon because all my books are in all my books are in boxes now, and it's like my world is disappearing. Like I don't know if you can you hear my echo? Can you hear an echo today?
And
Wait,
no.
Sheikh Fareed?
Yes. Sister Gish, you had a question?
I did, yeah. I got a little confused with that. So
Can I just come
when,
back? Can I just come back in a second, Sister Tigis? So I'm just saying
yes.
that I used to have a book on my table, okay, and now it's like a personal like my books are like my family, right? And so all my books are on boxes now. I'm not going to see them for like 6 weeks. Inshallah, I'll see them. So now I have an echo to my right, right? And there's all these like 1,000 books of fiqh that's not even there. So I used to have a book to my left, which is the Sunan of Bayhaqi. So Imam Bayhaqi, early Shafi'i hadith scholar, okay? And so he's telling us like why do the Shafis say that, right? The Shafi'is, we say that basically because the Malikis say that. Like our evidence really for this whole concept is what the 7 scholars of Medina did. So the whole concept of following the way of Medina is a big issue. And here's an example of the Shafi school being exactly the same as the Maliki school, and the Hanbali school because it's the little brother of the Shafi school coming out of that, right? And the concept here then is that the madhahib are based on the fiqh of the Salaf, not just Quran and Sunnah. Whereas the Salafi approach actually deletes the Salaf, if that makes sense. That's what it does. Like they don't intentionally do that, but the Salafi approach, which says Quran and Sunnah, actually deletes the Salaf, right? So it's actually a unintentional disaster, right? So the reason why in the Shafi school, a woman who finishes her period, a woman who finishes her postnatal bleeding, a person who becomes sane, somebody who comes out of a coma, a child who reaches puberty at that time, uh, the reason why they do that is essentially because a number of very significant muftis of the Sahaba of the Tabi'een of Medina said that. That's basically what it is. Like Imam Bahiqi says, this is the fatwa of the 7 fuqaha of Medina, right? Like Qasim ibn Muhammad, right? So Muhammad Sabir, he knows about these 7 people because we see them again and again in the Muwatta. But that's what's happening, right? There is actually no explicit hadith, certainly no explicit verse of the Quran for what we're talking about. Okay, so that's what's happening there. Does that make sense? So Satikas, I'm going to come to you in a second, but does that make sense to everybody else what I mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Tigist.
No, I was trying to fully understand. So if a woman finishes her cycle and Isha has begun, so she needs to do Maghrib,
Maghrib and
not just
Isha.
start from Isha and moving forward.
Yeah, she has to, so as long as her period starts before Fajr, she has to pray Maghrib and Isha. As long as her period stops before Maghrib, she has to pray Dhuhr and Asr. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, you got cut off. All I heard was Dhuhr and Asr.
So basically, we have 3 prayer times when it comes to this duress time. We have Dhuhr
Mhm.
Asr time, and we have Maghrib Isha time, and we have Fajr time. Okay? So
Mhm.
so Dhuhr and Asr time, that ends at sunset. So as long as your period ends before sunset, you have to pray Dhuhr and Asr. You have to pray both,
Okay.
right? Even if you obviously like it's 1 minute before sunset. How on earth are you supposed to have a shower and pray? Like, how's that going to happen? The point is, you became eligible. That's all. Obviously, you're not sinful for not praying on time. But the point is, it's like, it's like saying, did you earn anything in 2023? Yes. Okay, you got to pay taxes. Oh, okay. Or at least you have to file taxes, right? Like, were you here? Yes. Like, so you were eligible. Okay. So now it's registered. That's all. Okay. So
So it's
simply,
not a kata.
it's
When you
not
do,
qada
when you
now.
go ahead and pray Maghrib, you
Oh, no,
just go
it's
regular
going
prayer.
to be qada now because you're praying it. You're now praying Dhuhr and Asr in Maghrib time. But the point is, you were obliged to pray these prayers. That's the case. So
Okay.
it's basically to how far does the obligation chase you? So the obligation of Maghrib chases you up until the end of Isha. Now you finish your period in Fajr time, or you became sane in Fajr time, or you came out of your coma in Fajr time, or this kid reached puberty in Fajr time. Khalas, he does not have to pray Maghrib and Isha because Maghrib and Isha do not get stretched into Fajr time. Similarly, Fajr does not get stretched into any other time, and Dhuhr and Asr they only get stretched up until the end of sunset, up until sunset. Okay, so if you finish your period before sunset, you have to pray Dhuhr and Asr. If you finish your period before Fajr, you have to pray Maghrib and Isha. When do you have to pray them? At some time. You're not sinful for missing them, but so you can pray them. It'd be better to pray them and then pray the current prayer. But if you don't want to do that, it's Fajr time. You're super tired. You just want to pray. And man, I have to make also, and then I have to pray. Just pray. But those two prayers are registered in your responsibility. That's the point. Does that make sense?
Can I ask a question?
Sister Tika, does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It does, yes, very clear.
So now you say, well, given that I'm Shafi, does that mean I have to do qada? It's like, no, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. The Hanafis, they don't have this concept at all. So this is a very good example of Hanafi, which is Kufan, versus Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, which is Medinan, right? So it's like these two different systems, right? Two different systems, right? And so the Hanafis, that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So, they don't. That's not a thing that they have, right? And so here's the issue. Somebody comes along and says, "I just follow Quran and Sunnah." Actually, nobody just follows Quran and Sunnah. Meaning, what our predecessors did is they followed their predecessors. That's what they did. So they looked at the Salaf and they said, for example, Imam Malik very clearly, like Imam Malik said, what do the Muftis of Medina do? They do this. What is their proof? I don't even know what their proof is, right? I don't actually need to know what their proof is. But the fact that these great scholars did that, I'm going to do that, right? The Kufans will do a similar kind of thing. They say our great scholars who we revere and we respect, they don't have that fatwa, right? People like Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, people like Al-Alqama, right? They don't have that fatwa. So that's we don't follow that. We don't follow that. That's not correct. And so the point is there's a level of taqleed, level of following other greater scholars at that very early time before the four imams, right? And that the madhahib are just an extension of those systems. The Hanafi school is not the school of Imam Abu Hanifa. It is the organization of the Kufan school that began before Imam Abu Hanifa and continued after Imam Abu Hanifa. The Maliki school is not the creation of Imam Malik. It is a what's it called? Condensation, or not condensation, what's it called?
Consolidation.
Consolidation, sorry, I'm like half asleep. Consolidation of the fiqh of these Medinan scholars, the students of Aisha, the students of Ibn Umar, the students of Sa'id ibn Musayyib, Zayd ibn Thabit, etc. These people, and putting that together, and then that's the Maliki school. So we call it Maliki school, and we think about Imam Malik, and we might even think about North Africa or something like that. It's like, oh, it's North Africa or African schools. Like, that's nothing to do with it. It's the way of Medina, right? And even Imam Shafi'i, like, and the best example is 20 rakats of Taraweeh. Like, why is there this Salafi four madhab conflict? It's because there's no hadith that is sahih, that's for sure, that indicates 20 rakats. Nor is there obviously any verse in the Quran which is 20 rakats. But the Salaf prayed 20, 30, 40 rakats. So that's why the four madhahib stick to 20. Whereas the Salafi approach is there's no hadith, so therefore ignore it. So the Salafi approach, despite the name Salaf, don't actually follow the Salaf, right? It's actually that's how it is, because it's kind of which is the nature of any revolutionary idea, right? Like that's how things work. Any kind of like punk, anarchistic, like anarchy is there. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Sham can chime in. Like an anarchist, like what's his goal is kind of fighting against the corrupt government, but he creates corruption himself, right? It's not a real thing. And same thing. So Salafism, that's what it is. It's very young, interesting, novel, kind of thing, but it's very green and immature, and it actually ends up without kind of anything because it actually deconstructs, destructs as opposed to constructs, right? So that's that key concept. So many they won't understand that because I think they just think, oh, I want to follow Quran and Sunnah. Of course, like Quran and Sunnah means revelation. What else would I follow? But the thing is that they lack is they didn't see what the Salaf did and didn't see how the early Muslims did things. And so it's just totally different. It's almost like Protestant versus Catholic to some extent. It's not a very good example, but or maybe Orthodox, whatever. Like, what did the early church fathers do versus how do you read the Bible? You know, that's how things are. Allah Alam. Somebody else had a question?
Yes, Ustad. So the eligibility for duress time is, for example, when someone's period just ended,
Mm-hmm.
does it have to be like someone's period just ended right at the edge of Maghrib or something like that? Because someone's period may
You're talking
have
about
ended.
Dhuhr and Asr?
Let's okay, Dhuhr and Asr, for
Okay,
example.
so Dhuhr and
So
Asr, one split second before the sun fully set, she realized that her period ended. She now has to pray Dhuhr and Asr
right.
like that. So the condition though is that the mani', the thing that stopped her praying, continues. So let's take an example. He was insane, okay? For 3 seconds but 1 second before sunset and 1 second after sunset, he became sane. So now I ask the question, is he obliged to pray Dhuhr and Asr? The answer is no. Why? Because yes, the eligibility came in, he was now sane, but it didn't last. It didn't last long enough. So he has to be sane, for example. He was out of his coma, he was sane for a moment. So for a moment of Asr, just a split second before Maghrib, okay? And then it lasted long enough time to actually pray Dhuhr and Asr, but it didn't. So therefore he's not obliged to pray Dhuhr and Asr. Does that make sense?
yes.
So for a period, it doesn't really apply because period stops and that's it, right? But as opposed to, let's say, insanity or coma or something like that.
I think you mentioned this earlier, Sheikh Fareed, but I didn't catch it. If it's, say, 5 minutes before Maghrib and you haven't prayed Asr yet,
Mhm.
are you allowed to pray even though the sun is starting to set, or do you have to wait until the
Yeah,
sun has
so
completely
you're
set?
obliged to pray. You're obliged to pray Asr. The question is not praying Asr. So if you say sinful time, sinful is not in respect to praying the prayer. It's in respect to delaying the prayer to that time. Does that make sense? So I'm looking at two different things. It is now 5 minutes before Maghrib, and you are now praying Asr. I'm actually looking at two different things. One is the prayer itself, which is obligatory. Another thing, which is the prayer itself, which is valid, right? Did it count or not? And the third thing is what happened before it? Why did you delay it to that time? Oh, I was asleep. I was watching the game, and I kept looking at the clock saying, yep, I'm delaying Asr, watch me delay Asr, watch me delay Asr, watch me delay Asr. And I delayed it, up until 1 minute before that time. So so when we say sinful time, we're not really talking about praying. We're talking about the act of delaying. Does that make sense? So that means
Yes.
that excludes two scenarios. I was asleep or I forgot, right? I was in a meeting. And you're like, oh my God, I didn't pray Asr. Whoa, 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 I forgot. Like honestly forgot to pray Asr, right? Or you were asleep, right? And you fell asleep, but you're sitting on the couch at the whole time, you fell asleep, and now it's like 1 minute before Maghrib. So I didn't realize the sleep debt caught up on me, etc. So now praying Asr is obligatory. You have to do it immediately. And it's valid because Asr time has come in. And it's not sinful, of course, because you didn't intentionally delay that prayer to that time. Does that make sense? So we're actually talking about two different actions. The labeling the act of delaying as good or bad, and labeling the act of praying as good or bad or obligatory, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get the two concepts. So, but I guess I'm trying to figure out, am I allowed to pray even though the sun is setting? Like I
Yeah,
understand
you have to pray.
you have to pray it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So,
then my other
so the
part
issue
was
then, the issue that's debated between the madhahib is what about if the sun
mhm.
is rising? Okay, so I woke up and the sun is rising. Do I pray Fajr right now or not? Right? That's the Hanafi issue. For example, the Hanafis, they have this saying that what if you're praying Fajr and the sun starts rising, that your prayer gets broken, right? So that's a different, that's a Hanafi thing. But for the Jumhur, for the majority of scholars, not an issue, right? You woke up, it doesn't matter when you woke up. Did you wake up before sunrise? Before, okay, then pray Fajr. Did you wake up during sunrise? Okay, pray Fajr. Did you wake up after sunrise, but not long enough time to start praying? Then pray. It doesn't, like you still pray, right? And so, majority of scholars, that's not an issue. The issue is you have to pray that prayer. And if you intentionally delayed it to that time, you are also sinful. And if you didn't intentionally delay that time, you're not sinful. But you have to pray that prayer.
And then
And then, sorry,
going back to
importantly, sorry, one thing happens when you reach sinful time, you are now sinful if you do any sunnahs. What does that mean? Like, it is now the minimum time to pray Asr on time, or the minimum time to pray Maghrib on time. You are not allowed to, for example, pray in Jama'ah because you say, hey, let's just wait for my husband to quickly pray. You can't do that. You can't be like, oh, straighten your clothes, right? You need to have a shower, right? And it's now 5 minutes left to pray Fajr. You cannot wash your hair. You cannot do this, not do that. You can't even dry yourself. Like you just have to get in, get out, and pray now. Like and pray as fast as possible because you're obliged to pray that prayer on time. Does that make sense? So if once you've entered that last few minutes of that prayer time, you cannot take any unnecessary steps to pray. You just have to do the absolute bare minimum and make sure you pray that whole prayer on time. You can't go downstairs. You can't straighten your clothes. You can't wipe something off your face. You can't, whatever it is, like you just gotta pray. Does that make sense?
yes. And just to go back to the one of the reasons why we may delay the prayer. So say if I fell asleep and then I woke up and it's 6 o'clock and I'm like, oh no, I have to get dinner on the table. People are depending on, me for a meal. Do
Yeah.
I jump into
Yeah, so
prayer first, or do
there you
I?
have two scenarios. Okay, you have two scenarios. Okay, or three scenarios. Okay, so let's take an example of me, man who needs to go to work. Okay, I got to go to work. So I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I missed Fajr stuff. Okay, and if I go and pray Fajr right now, I'm going to be late for work. Right? So then I ask myself, Reed, were you sinful for missing Fajr or not? And I said, no, I set an alarm clock and didn't wake up. So okay, so you're not sinful. So therefore, you don't have to make it up. You don't have to pray it immediately, and you've missed the prayer already anyway, and you don't have to pray the prayer up already immediately because you didn't sinfully miss it. So therefore, just go to work and do whatever, right? So if there's an obligation, you go do an obligation. If there's an important thing, cooking dinner, whatever, is fine. Okay. Now, what if it's still Fajr time though? Right? It's 5 minutes left to pray Fajr, and I didn't get the kids up on time, and they're not going to go to school, and it's like you have to pray Fajr. There's nothing else basically, other than life or death that comes before that. Right? So if you have literally 5 minutes left to pray the prayer, you just have to pray the prayer. That's it. Like there's nothing else you can do.
And what if like
And
I
then sorry, the
know.
third scenario, sorry, Satikas, the third scenario is I was watching TV and Asa came in. I was watching TV and Asa's going through and I'm watching TV and I keep looking at the clock and I have 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, and I'm like, ah man. Anyway, I'll just pray it with Maghrib. So now Maghrib and I get a phone call like, hey, you got to do this. I'm like, actually, I've sinfully missed Asr because I just was lazy and I didn't pray it. Now I have to pray Asr immediately. So it doesn't matter what I have a job or something like that or something else happens, like or somebody needs something. Like unless someone's gonna die, you have to pray Asr now because you just sinfully missed Asr. Like you wasn't forgetful, you knew it and you just didn't pray it on time. So if you sinfully miss a prayer, that prayer has to be made up immediately. Okay, so there's two scenarios where you have to do things immediately. One is that it's still within the prayer time, right? So you've got to do it immediately because you're about to miss it. The other one is you missed it sinfully, like you were awake and aware and you just didn't pray. Now you have to pray that prayer right now. You can't do anything else. The scenario where you could delay is, hey, I've already missed a prayer. Oh my God, Oh, astaghfirullah, man. I missed Dhuhr. This crazy clock in Scotland where Dhuhr only lasts for 1.5 hours. This is insane. I missed it again, subhanAllah. I've missed it. I didn't miss it sinfully. So then and so now but there's something else that's more important. I'll go and do that first. Does that make sense?
Okay, so because I fell asleep, so that's not a sin on me. I wake up
Yeah, but so
and then I can,
which prayer are we talking about?
let's say it's so say if I wake up at 6 o'clock, it's Asr time still. I haven't missed it, but it's
Yes.
well into Asr. So I wake up at 6 and we got people hungry left and right.
Yeah.
And I'm waking up from a nap that I like sometimes not even
Yeah,
intentional, right?
so how long do you have left to pray Asr? You have like an hour and a half, right, or more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
But
totally
you know,
fine.
when it
It's
comes
not
to
like
cooking, it takes
yeah,
like an hour and a half,
yeah. So now you got to
so
cook, do this, do that, but you have to pray Asr on time.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So the question we're talking about is you woke up, let's say, just before Maghrib. So you had 10 minutes left to pray Asr. Do I go and do the food or do I pray? So you have to pray because you're about to miss the prayer. Like it doesn't matter if people are hungry or not. It's like, Ibrahim is not killing Abdurrahman but hurting him. That's okay. Like you just got to pray. No one's actually dying. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's actually dying. It's okay, just leave it. Like you have to pray right now. That's it. Does it make sense?
Okay.
So it's
Yeah,
like
that
so
makes
there's
sense.
life scenario like this is I'm not sure if the kid is breathing. Okay, stop. As soon as, like then you stop praying or you don't pray or whatever, right? That's something else. But otherwise, like it doesn't matter what's happening. You just gotta pray, right? Like this would be really weird. Like I'm in the middle of the car park, what do you call it, parking lot, right? And I'm like, I haven't prayed Maghrib. I have 5 minutes left. Pray now. Oh, but this is super weird. You don't have a choice. Like just pray where you are. I literally have 1 minute left to pray Maghrib. Just stand where you are, as long as you're not blocking traffic. Like stand to the side, pray. This is super weird. Doesn't matter. Like you have to do it.
Is that the same with parents as well? Like if your parents need you and need your
Yeah.
help
So
in that
life or
moment?
death, right? Life or death scenario. Like, so it's not really weird. Like, hello, they're talking to you. They don't even know what you're doing, right? My friend was like that. My friend was in the army, and he was praying in the woods, and one of his people who's, maybe I think he was kind of in charge of some people, walked past him while he was praying, and he's Maliki, right? They pray with their hands by. So then he put his hand out to block him. The guy shook his hand and walked off, right? So again, life or death scenario. Okay, but it's not if it's not a life or death scenario, the prayer has to be prayed on time, right? So when is the scenario that you could delay it is that when you've already missed it and you didn't miss it for a sin. I'm like, oh man, I missed Fajr. Okay, well, I'm super late. We have to get onto the airplane in the next 1 hour and a half. Let's just run. So missed Fajr. We didn't sinfully miss it. We were packing till 2 a.m. We put the alarm clock. We didn't wait. We just try and get to that flight if we can. Yeah, just get in the car, leave all the non-essentials and just go. That's fine. As opposed to, hey, you intentionally missed that prayer on time. You have to pray that prayer right now. You can't do anything else. Does that make sense?
So just to be clear, the rights that people have upon you does not come first. You get your salat in first and then deal with the people's needs.
Exactly. So those rights would preclude, for example, things like sunnahs, right? Things like sunnahs. And then the issue then as well is some of these rights are not real rights as well. So some of these things are like, that's not even a right. So like your kid's like, oh, mama, you didn't make the popcorn. It's like, it's not even a right. So there's certain things that are stressors, like the kids are screaming. That's not like, so, there's things like, that's not even a right. Like, so, sometimes we make things in our minds like, oh, we have to do this. Like I promised them I'd do something. It's like, actually, that's not even an obligation to begin with. So it's not even, the priorities are not right to begin with. Okay, so question here says that happened to me on a plane. I was sitting and praying, and when I was in record, the woman next to me said, I thought I was ill and started out saying, are you okay? Yeah. So what we should do, Sham, in those scenarios, right, is when you're praying next to somebody in the plane, we should tell them. Because otherwise it's a bit concerning. Say, hey, I'm good. Because imagine, for example, you're praying standing up, right? And then your head is next to the chair. They're like, hey, bro, why are you looking under my chair? You know? So you should tell a person, hey, I'm going to pray. I'm just going to put my head on the floor. and they're like, okay, you're a weird person, but at least they know what's going on, right? So we should just we need to, as Muslims in general, we need to do a lot of communicating. Like, hey, by the way, I'm not trying to blow you up, you know? Things like that. Like just make it clear. Like, hey, I'm just gonna pray here. It's gonna take 2 minutes. And they're like, okay, weird, but okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Mahed.
This might be a long question. If you want to move it to next.
Yeah, because we have another class. So maybe you can put it in the chat, and then we'll try and answer it next week. I mean, on the WhatsApp group, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
Inshallah. So next week we will go on to Isha, and then inshallah by 2030 we'll finish Fajr, inshallah. Inshallah. Okay, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhanallahi wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.